Message from Starfleet Command, top priority.
You are listening to the TrekRanks podcast, a member of the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network. This is episode 145, featuring the top 5 High-Concept TOS episodes. Welcome, Star Trek fans. I am Jim Moorhouse. I'm the host of the TrekRanks podcast, and tonight we are doing our top 5 High-Concept TOS episodes, which is the 5th and final high-concept topic we've done for the 5 Legacy series. So we've previously done TNG, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise, and tonight we're doing top 5 high-concept TOS episodes. And as I've said in recent weeks, I'm pretty excited about this one because we are concluding what is actually our 3-topic, 15-part series for the 5 Legacy series across the past 5 years of the TrekRanks podcast, with Guilty Pleasures and our underrated series. And now we're finishing up our high-concept episodes. So pretty damn cool to get to this point in episode 145 after starting all the way back in episode 9 with the top 5 high-concept Voyager episodes. We're wrapping up this 15-part series now. And for this topic, we have 2 great guests, both returning for their second TrekRanks appearance. First up, coming to us live from the South Carolina sector, it's Mr. Sam Nelson. Sam, welcome back.
Hi, Jim. Thanks for having me back. I'm excited about this topic.
I love it. I'm glad to have you on. Last time I saw you was at Mission Chicago. That was right. That was a great week. And our second guest made his first appearance back on episode 131, our one-off guest stars. And I told him at the time he would not be a one-time TrekRanks guest. And tonight we make that real. It's Commodore Peter Hong from the New York Quadrant. Welcome back, Peter.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jim. It's great to be here. Thanks for the promotion and for having me back.
Yeah, we made you a Commodore this episode. I don't know what that means, but we did it. All right. Going to be a great show. Let's get started with our TrekRanks recalibration.
What are you recalibrating?
Everything. It's a sweeping, a recalibration of all systems.
As regular listeners will know by now, general order number 1 of the TrekRanks charters that we love Trek. We love to rank Trek via some deep dive topics just to get the conversation started. And remember, it's not about the ranks. That's just our excuse to talk about Star Trek, because as Mr. Spock, of course, Mr. Spock himself has said, our show is all about
infinite diversity in infinite combinations, symbolizing the elements that create truth and beauty.
No wrong answers. It's not about being right or definitive in any way. It's just about sharing the things we love about Star Trek. And we love it all, from TOS to TNG, straight through to Enterprise, and the Kelvin timeline, and now Discovery, Picard, Strange New Worlds, Short Treks, Lower Decks, and Prodigy as well. It's all fair game here on the TrekRanks podcast.
Black alert. Black alert.
And a reminder that this episode of TrekRanks is current through 859 episodes of Star Trek, which means the 6th episode of Star Trek Lower Decks 3rd season, the great Deep Space Nine episode, Hear All, Trust Nothing. We don't need to do our, actually we do. Yeah, one final reminder. We use episodes as a shorthand term, but these 6 TOS films are in play tonight as well, I would think.
I've boosted power to the communications bandwidth.
Thank you, Mr. Kim. We appreciate that. And you can find TrekRanks on Subspace at TrekRanks.com. You can contact me directly on Twitter at TrekRanks or at Enterprise Extra. And you can also call and leave us a message with your own picks at 609-512-LLAP. That's 609-512-5527. Okay, Sam and Peter, let everybody know how they can get a hold of you on Subspace. Sam.
You can find me on Twitter at SLNelson77.
Perfect. And Peter, how about you?
Hi, you can find me on Twitter as well. It's at PeterTrek1, the number 1. I also hang out at the Trek Book Club on Twitter, and I can be reached at Trek Book Club there as well.
Okay, let's get started on this topic. We're going to get rolling by jumping into our prime directives.
But what you're proposing is exactly the kind of tampering the Prime Directive prohibits.
Okay, Sam and Peter, we're jumping straight into our prime directives on this high concept topic, which is always kind of an interesting thing for this for TrekRanks. It's just always kind of, there's a bunch of different ways you can look at high concept. So it can be all about this big single idea that kind of sells an episode. It can also be something super simple that's easy to explain. Yeah, there's lots of different ways to look at it. So you never quite know what we're going to get with these high concept topics. But, I think for the most part, usually becomes grand and epic. But Sam and Peter, how did you guys approach this topic? And what do you think of when you think about high concept as a topic and how you narrow down your list? So Sam, let's start with you. How did you kind of define high concept and come up with your list?
Sure. So I think I entered into, Jim, because it was the last one.
I like
it. It's the last of the high concept. It's the last of your 15-part series. I said, it's got to be perfect. I went into analysis paralysis. I listened to every other high concept episode. I revisited a bunch of TOS heavy episodes from your catalog. And then I went, here's a list of simple concepts. Because if you look at the definition, which has been discussed on all the previous high concept episodes, this is what the definition is. It's an elevator pitch. X meets Y, high concept. But then, just like folks in the other episodes, to me, it's a big concept. Right. It's something grand. It's huge. So I said, forget everything I was doing. I enjoyed listening to old episodes, by the way. And I said, just make a list of TOS episodes that we don't talk about a lot, that we don't hear, but have great science fiction concepts that really strike at the heart of what Star Trek is. So I went all over the place, but I think I came up with 5 episodes that really speak to big, conceptual, grand ideas.
First of all, our episodes never get carbon dated. Don't forget, you can listen to them anytime. And I got goosebumps thinking about that. That's a great prime directive. I'm super excited. And it's funny because we've done these 4 previous episodes and it's kind of all over the place. The specific definition is the elevator pitch, the real simple idea. But I don't know, in my mind, I've always thought of high concept as something big and grand and super, not necessarily complicated, but epic. So it is funny how you can kind of look at it both ways. That is awesome. Can't wait to get into it. Peter, how about you, man? How did you break it down?
Sure. I did something similar. When I first heard about the topic, I actually had to do a little research on what it stood for. What's the concept of a high concept? So, but after listening to the previous episodes, I had a better idea. So I went with more of a science fiction, one grand or one original or one big idea, or more of a little bit more on the abstract side, as it turned out. So I went with those, and I tried to pick 5 different concepts for the episodes, which actually I'll talk about that a little later, because I actually started to get some doubles and then I had to rearrange things quickly. But I tried to find 5 different concepts, a little bit more abstract, a little bit more on sort of science fiction grand approach. So we'll see what happens. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for me, I've been all over the place with my different picks for high concept, all kinds of different prime directives, from big ideas to the elevator pitch to for TNG, I did episodes I'd never picked before, which I enjoyed doing. But for TOS, I just decided my main driver is going to be my love for classic 1950s sci-fi and these big, huge original science fiction concepts that you just wouldn't expect to see on TV in the 1960s. So I was looking for big ideas, and that just reminded me of kind of 1950s sci-fi. So yeah, I'm excited to get into my list and highlight some of these old high concept sci-fi stories. Okay, I think we are ready. First, Cadet Catan, introduce us to the new order of things.
It'll be alphas like us that determine the future of this quadrant. That will be the new order of things.
Thank you, First Cadet Catan. As always, just a quick reminder on how we're going to go through the order of things. First, everyone will start with their 5-word summary and a hashtag to tease their pick. Then we'll each reveal our high concept TOS episode and the specific reasons we're highlighting it. And at the end, we'll ask everyone for a few secondary system selections for the picks that just missed our list. And as always, if we have any duplicate picks, make sure you listen for the Defiant Torpedo. Okay, Sam, I'm going to start with you. What's your number 5 pick for your top 5 high concept TOS episodes?
I have rearranged these all day, but I can't resist. I can't resist just starting off big timing it. 5 words, ship's doctors are dirty old men. Hashtag the highest concepts. I'm going with The Cage. I don't even know, season 0, episode original. We have to draw it back. It's where it all started. The original too cerebral idea, right, from Gene. It's that one script that no matter how we feel about it today, no matter where we are almost 60 years later, it's responsible for 900, almost 900 episodes over that course of time. It created the template really for the storytelling that we still see today in Star Trek. We may not make that episode again today, but what Gene did with the concept of Star Trek really set the stage for everything. And I went back and revisited. It's been a long time since I watched it outside of the menagerie setting. And gosh, does it still hold up today? Are there things they don't talk about? Is it a little clunky in parts? Absolutely. But my goodness, the concept of just picking up in the middle of a mission with Pike and his crew, with meeting probably, I mean, I wasn't around in the 60s during its original run, and it was never shown, but these are aliens and locations and props that I would imagine in 1966, if it would have aired, would have been mind-blowing to the audience. So for me, The Cage is really the biggest concept of all, and everything that we get to enjoy as Star Trek fans has flowed from this starting point.
Come on! We must hide ourselves! Come! Hurry! It's deserted. There'll be weapons and perhaps food.
This is Rigel 7.
Please, we must hide ourselves.
I was in a cage, a cell, in some kind of a zoo. I must still be there.
Come on!
They've reached into my mind and taken the memory of somewhere I've been.
The killer!
How can the first episode, literally the very first episode of Star Trek, be this good? It's absolutely incredible that it's at such a pinnacle, and it's such a high concept idea. The Telosians, you're putting this on TV, or you were designing it to be on TV in the mid 60s with, the Telosians just themselves, what a concept. To just all they are doing is being thought merchants and trying to manipulate you and your thoughts and everything. It's just really, really, it's too cerebral, as you said, Sam. Just brilliant.
It was just an audacious swing in the fences for sci-fi, and for him to come guns loaded as a writer and a creator of a show with something like this, it's just got to be. There's no other. It's a real ballsy move that he pulled off here, and my goodness, are we not better off for it? Even though it wasn't the one picked, it still was exactly. Just going back, it just makes you feel good to watch it again.
Audacious. Peter, what's your take on The Cage? Brilliant pick.
Oh yeah, that's a great pick. I really enjoyed the sort of what is real and what is illusion part of the story. That's one of the core parts of the Cage. So the Telosians sort of going into Pike's head, to see what his dreams, his fantasies, his nightmares, all the things that makes him, and having him play that out in the on Talos 4 with Vina in front of the Telosians. It's a really high concept episode. Those story arcs are really, really good, and that really help develop the beginnings of Star Trek as a as a series. A lot of the DNA that is in The Cage does get seen throughout the show to today, in addition to TOS, even to today, and Talos and The Cage also gets reinterpreted in more recent times related to Discovery, when there was a revisit in If Memory Serves, and also with Pike, of course, with Strange New Worlds, at least the background of it. So The Cage has gotten
all that stuff, just made it better.
Just adds more to it then. So
there's a production. I never talked about this on the show, but there's a scene where they're watching Vina dancing, and Pike kind of decides he's had enough, and he gets up and he leaves through a door, and it turns into kind of a cave set, and then he's walking, and then he turns back around. This is all one take. He turns back around to go back to the room, and now there's suddenly a wall there. And it just blows me away, the production level, because they've moved that wall into position, the cave wall, obviously, and you can't see the seam. Next thing you know, he's burning in hell. It's just amazing. The production, everything about this, brilliant opening pick. I love it, Sam. Thanks. Okay, Peter, what's your number 5 pick?
Okay, my number 5 words in a hashtag. Doppelgangers fight for all eternity. Hashtag first Trek parallel universe.
Oh, man.
My number 5 pick is season 1, episode 27, The Alternative Factor.
A fantastic high concept.
I know it's not on a lot of top 10 TOS episode lists.
No, but the concept is amazing. It's like it's so good. I don't even know what they're trying to do.
Right? I think I watched it, and I'm not even sure myself whether it's actually a very techno-babble heavy episode. And
I joked that I've seen it 50 times, and I still watch it and go, wait, what's actually happening? Because I really don't get it.
Yeah, it's high concept. I mean, the reason why I picked it is there's the first parallel universe or alternate universe. I mean, Mirror, they do that a little bit better later on, but this was the first time they, talk about that type of story. There was all these technical, cosmic winking out. There's rip in the universe. There's a minus universe, matter versus antimatter, alternative warp. It's sort of different. I think Spock must have been going crazy. I think trying to go through these lines, but they were trying to sort of build all the infrastructure for how an alternate universe would work, or that particular one would work. So I just found that to be interesting, even though the execution of it was so. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense.
And the other aspect of it that I included here is the concept of Lazarus, so that Lazarus A versus Lazarus B, fighting each other in that smoky room, or in that sort of the way where the two universes intersect, for all eternity. So they just keep on fighting. So at least that was a interesting concept of. What?
Isn't that the same as the first concept you said? See, I get so confused. It's it's so funny.
Yeah, it is.
Sam, what's your take on
it? Peter, you got me. Never would I have prepped to think that we would discuss alternative. It is true enough to Mirror. We do get weird goatees and mustaches in that episode, which I love.
Good point.
And scars, I think.
Yeah. But you're right in that. It isn't I'm going to use the word again. I didn't mean to. Audacious concept. Season 1, towards the end of season 1, to still say, we're going to introduce the concept of alternate realities, alternate universes. Here's how they intersect, and somehow the Enterprise finds itself at the center, that nexus point of how the fabric of the universe is tearing itself apart. Great setup. Makes you really think, and perhaps if it had a little bit more time to be reworked, or if there was a little bit bigger budget, or if the main guest actor hadn't flaked out at the last minute and had to plug somebody else in, what the alternative factor could have become. It could have been our City on the Edge of Forever kind of thing, right? It might have been, in an alternate dimension, the best Star Trek episode there was.
Well, I like that you said it was kind of the first shot at this, and of course, to be followed a few episodes later in season 2 by my number 5 pick. 5 words in a hashtag. I'm starting with a classic. Primary parallel programming progenitor perfection, hashtag reflected everywhere. It is season 2, episode 10, Mirror. It is the execution, the sci-fi conceit, classic, original, just interesting. It still feels fresh and vibrant today when you're watching it 50 years later. It just does not ever feel dated. And I was going to make the point that there were probably some interesting alternate reality ideas out there on film, and for sure in episodes like The Twilight Zone before this aired, and Alternative Factor for whatever they were trying there. But this became the gold standard. This is the one that made alternate and parallel reality storytelling popular and well-known and understood, and just has been imitated. And I don't say that in a negative way just been imitated for years by creators everywhere, and Star Trek everywhere, and sci-fi everywhere. And I love it. It's Mirror Mirror. That's my number 5 pick. Peter, what's your take there, following up on Alternative Factor?
No, that's a great pick, actually. I had Mirror Mirror in my top 5, and then I switched it out when I
for alternative factor. First time ever.
So I said, because I figured, I think there's a greater chance of someone else picking.
Yes, I like that. That's a good
picking alternative factor.
A good risk.
So I said, I'll talk about alternative factor. I'll let someone else talk about mirror. But that's a great pick. And I really, the whole mirror universe concept, the TOS dealt a little bit more with the sort of the evil versus good and Discovery and later mirror, DS9 did a lot of that about sort of the good version versus the evil version, the moving up the ranks through assassination, agonizer, agony booth, all those concepts that sort of builds on that infrastructure, the infrastructure of the world building that this particular episode sets up for 50 plus years of later storytelling. So that's a great decision and great episode.
Sam, what's your take?
After nearly 900 episodes, if you were to force rankings on people, you're going to find that Mirror Mirror is always going to be in. If you mix them all together, it's probably going to be in someone's top 10, the majority of people's top 10. But to speak to your point, when something enters the culture zeitgeist, like Mirror Mirror, if it doesn't matter what show you're on, it doesn't matter what movie you're in, they could take Bart Simpson and slap a goatee on him, and he's going to be evil Bart Simpson. That's all, and everyone knows the reference. It's that ubiquitous with you're not who you seem you should be. And it is still to this day the gold standard for mirror episodes in the Star Trek universe is Mirror Mirror. And it is one that any Trek fan can turn on at any time and just enjoy the heck out of. Great pick.
Everything's all messed up, changed around, out of place.
Captain, what's happened?
Oh, not everything. That spot. I spilled acid there a year ago. Jim, what in blazes is it?
I don't know. It's our enterprise. But it isn't.
It's that successful. That's how well they executed this high concept. All right, let's go to round 4. Sam, what do you got?
My number 4 pick. 5 words. I'm getting a red alert right here. # War Games Gone Wrong. I'm picking from season 2, The Ultimate Computer.
Oh, yes.
Again, I revisited all these episodes recently. It's been a couple of years since I finished my TOS rewatch. And this one really spoke to me. I've worked in and continue to work in an industry personally that continues to be where automation, where computers are replacing people, and it's going to go faster and faster. And on the surface, that's what this episode is. Now, it goes deeper places, but the conceptualization of something on TV, this was a great script written by DC Fontana in the 60s to say, when you could make your alpha male strongman Captain Kirk question, is there something more I could do? Am I replaceable? Am I really Captain Dunsel? When you can make him question himself, and he goes off in some weird things about man being man and all that kind of good stuff. But really, this episode gives us, in a science fiction concept, in the future, where Dr. Daystrom is like, I can make space travel safe for humans. You don't have to go out and be in danger. These are the things that we can do. And then, of course, as we see in a lot of sci-fi, the machines, something goes wrong, and they're going to screw up. So we've seen that repeated time and time again. Terminator probably does it best. But when we see this almost 60 years ago, and we continue to see the evolution of how man has to continuously stay a step ahead of productivity gains and efficiencies through computers, and we live in a kind of Star Trek world now where a lot of that is real life. This episode, in a big picture, still speaks to relevance today, and can make us question where we are in the greater sense of the world.
I love this because it checks every box too, because it's also the elevator pitch, right? I definitely considered this one because it's just the one line, like, the crew's replaced by a computer. That's the pitch. It's so good. They just so well executed. What I always say, this is my top rated, underrated episode I don't mean underrated literally, but I think it's like number 20 in my Trek ranks, but it's one that I think gets overlooked the most as being really, really top level episode. Anyway, I love this pick. Peter, what's your take on the Ultimate Computer?
Oh, sure. It's another great pick. I like that it's the sort of the balance between technology and people. And that's one of the, the high concept, with automation and how the, whether it's Captain Kirk potentially being replaced by the M5, and then also seeing how he handles it, because, he was very anxious at the beginning and nervous and just not sure. And he questions himself, and McCoy was helping him address that. So with how technology is, and like you said, Sam, it's a relevant topic back in 68 or so, and now it's relevant in 2022, and I'm sure it'll probably be relevant in some other technology with some other people in 10, 20, 30 years. It's one of these timeless themes of back and forth between technology, advancement in technology with the people. So
it'll keep being relevant until Skynet takes over.
and Peter, I'm glad you mentioned McCoy, because in all of Star Trek, he's my number one favorite character.
Me too. That's my favorite throughout the whole franchise, McCoy.
And McCoy has some really great scenes here. Now, he plays to a stereotype, right? We got to have people, and there's that element to it. But when he breaks down Daystrom in the scene in engineering, he's really he's making Daystrom turn inside out to really understand his psyche. And that only helps Spock later, because Spock knows something's fishy the whole time. And when he's able to understand Daystrom's psyche, Kirk then takes that information to eventually do the famous Kirk, you need to turn yourself off. You've committed a grave sin. So McCoy really gets some great scenes in this episode, and it's one of my favorite McCoy episodes.
That's a good shout out. And Daystrom is, what a character. Again, that's another character introduced in this episode in 1967 or 68, and it's still permeating through Star Trek today.
Still gets name checked today.
Yeah.
Super cool. Okay, Peter, what is your number 4 pick?
Okay, I think it's time to fire the fire torpedoes. My 5 words is the first ever Star Trek episode, # what is real and what is illusion.
I love it.
So it is, again, the pilot, The Cage episode, I guess season 0, episode 1, The Cage. So
I'm excited you guys both thought of this. I didn't have this on my radar at all. And I should have, but it's a perfect duplicate.
I think, Peter, for me, it was the first one I thought of.
Yeah, for some reason it didn't click him. Maybe I was scanning and I just didn't. It's the biggest high concept. Anyway, Peter, go. What's your final summation of it?
We kind of talked a little bit about it, sort of what is real, what is illusion, and just the television, why they were doing it and what they did with Pike. So we've talked a little bit about it. One thing I did want to just mention, just to tie up the discussion, is the ending scene in which Vina, in her mind, Pike stayed with her. So, when they were sort of going up the rocks and sort of bidding farewell. And then at the end of the menagerie, it was Pike kind of returning, at least according to the monitor that Kirk saw, that the television, showed him, Pike was returning to the planet, and then so to live out his days as a healthy person. So it was just interesting, sort of the parallels between the ending of The Cage and the ending of the menagerie.
Yeah, and I just look at that as the cleverness of Gene Roddenberry at the time to kind of take his original story and tweak it a little bit for the menagerie, which I've said many times on this show. I can't even imagine watching TV in 1966, and a 2-parter of this series comes on, and they have all this back footage with this different sets. And it's like mind-blowing. Like, how did they do this? This is a TV show. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, no, it was very well done. So I'm really happy that, starting the Star Trek off on this type of episode, sort of a sign of things to come.
Sam, any final comments on The Cage?
No, we've said it enough. This is just a phenomenal way to start. And Peter, as soon as that episode was over, I watched the start of, I didn't finish the entire episode of Discovery, where they go back to Talos 4, and we're able to see Vina again. I wanted to revisit Vina again, because I love Melissa George in that role. And just when she walks into the shuttlecraft to talk to Spock, she mentions Chris Pike. And there's just something about that actress's portrayal of Vina that really, you can tell that she's yearning to see him again, which is great stuff.
So good. And I again said this before on this show, never even crossed my mind, knowing we were going to Talos 4, and if memory serves, never even crossed my mind we were going to meet Vina until the moment when I'm watching it and Burnham looks back at the shuttle and you see this woman walking into the shuttle. And I literally fell out of my chair like, oh, it's Vina. Oh my God.
You did the Leonardo DiCaprio snapping at the screen.
I did, like, oh, they're doing it. It's Vina. Never even crossed my mind. Incredible. I love it. Discovery. Well done. Okay. My round 4 pick is a good, nice bookend to your pick, Sam. 5 words and a hashtag. Disintegration deaths don't depict destruction. Hashtag dumb decisions. And it's TOS season 1, A Taste of Armageddon, which, I mean, talk about being ahead of its time in terms of depicting computers and the way they infiltrate our society, fighting a war with computer simulations and people just voluntarily killing themselves and disintegrating themselves to protect their cities and their belongings, so there's no destruction and no pain and suffering. It's just absolutely incredible that this episode aired in 1967 and is still so relevant today. And I just love it. It's a great sci-fi concept. The uniforms, the look, everything's high concept for me. It just feels like that era of sci-fi that I love, with a Mini R7 and a Non 7 and Mia 3, and this is a Gene Kuhn script. So yeah, I love it. Taste of Armageddon. Peter, what's your take?
Actually, this one was on my secondary system, so it's something that came across as well, mainly for the reasons you talked about, sort of the concept of fighting this war, and just having people going into the chambers that way, and rather than having a more of a physical fight. So it was a good episode, and it was a high concept one. And one thing I always think of when I think of A Taste of Armageddon is the Robert Fox, the ambassador.
Oh yeah, I picked him as one of my top 5 admirals. So I hate that guy. Sam, what's your take?
Yeah, Fox has that look about him that's just you're a jerk.
Just
starting from the second he comes on the screen. A lot of my episode rankings, I've been watching the original Star Trek since it was the first thing I watched, 1984. And a lot of my opinions over TOS episodes have shifted, of course, over 30 years. But this one has been and always shall be one of my favorite episodes.
Right.
It's extremely well done. It tells a great story. There's action. Kirk breaks it down and really makes that planet look at themselves, or actually that those 2 planets look at themselves in a way that they had never considered before. It had been a long time since they considered. It's just a good episode.
Yep,
it's just really great. There's not a beat wrong in that entire thing.
Yeah, it's perfect and stands the test of time. Okay, soup round.
Eat your soup, courtesy of a loyal establishment.
Jolan True.
Round 3, Sam, what's your pick?
Remember, part of my list involved episodes that I don't hear talked about a lot. So
okay,
I went a little deeper on this one. I know you love deep cuts. 5 words: a flower dying in the desert. Hashtag I'll drink to that. It is from season 3, Requiem for Methuselah.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yes, this is great.
There are bits of it that don't make any sense. It was late season 3. How Kirk falls for Raina so fast, I'm not so sure of. How she's different than any of the other women that he comes across.
Hey, he was there for like 4 hours, man. Okay. I mean...
yeah, she played billiards with him. I mean, I guess that's it.
On a table with no holes.
The concept, though, that they would come across, and now we have to open our minds in the Star Trek universe to having Flint, who has been so many people, if we take him at his word, he has been so many people. Janeway doesn't believe that Kirk meant Da Vinci, though.
Right.
But we take this immortal person who actually, we assume that, McCoy says that he's beginning to die, that we wrap our heads around the undying immortal man that has seen history, that can truly judge the human race, more so than like a Q in TNG, because he's been at every major part or knows all these people from Earth's past to when he left Earth. So to me, that immortal man concept is massive and a potential game changer for the Star Trek universe. We don't really touch on that a whole lot in the rest of the Star Trek universe, but for this one episode, what a major thing. And we're not even talking about, I haven't even started talking about Raina and him creating the perfect mate, but just the concept of Flint himself as an immortal man who's seen the history and can judge the human race because he's lived through it, he's seen it, he's met those people, is a big idea in my mind.
Oh my God, this is one of my favorite deep cut picks ever. So this is the first time that Requiem for Methuselah has ever been picked on TrekRanks. And what a huge high concept. The whole idea that Flint has been all these people in Earth's history and is immortal. I mean, it'd be one thing if he was Da Vinci, but he's also,
he's Brahms.
Was he Galileo? I can't remember, but he was all these famous people. And it's crazy to me that is a huge high concept idea. I wasn't sure where you were going when you picked this, but yeah, that's just brilliant. I love this pick, and I don't know, something about this episode. I mean, no one's ever gonna rank it super high, but it's soothing. I like just to put it on and have it on in the background. Something about it I like.
I do wish he could forget her.
It really is good. And we get to see Spock way before the more famous Remember.
Right.
We get to see him say forget.
Forget, yes. Yes.
Those one-word Vulcan mind melds are powerful stuff.
Forget.
Incredible. Peter, what is your take on Requiem for Methuselah?
Yeah, no, that's a great pick. I to be honest, I hadn't thought of that one either. So it's very interesting when you talked about Flint and his, being the different people over the years. So, but I think, that was a good one. And one thing I did recall is that in the novels, in the Trek books, the Flint character does come back, I think, for a few of them, and that his he kind of plays different roles depending on what the book needs, but he does return, and that's been the references to his past lives also comes up from time to time.
I don't think I knew that, but I'm not surprised to hear that. I mean, it's a pretty easy character to slide in. Okay, Peter, what's your soup round pick?
Okay, my soup round pick, 5 words and a hashtag upgrade, then return to sender. Hashtag the human adventure is just beginning. So I am going to go with Star Trek, the motion picture. So I am using the movies here.
Yes.
I'm using the movies here.
It's a brilliant pick.
Yeah, thank you. So this is the really the arc related to V'ger was the reason why I picked the motion picture.
Of course.
Becoming sentient, wanting to find his creator, merging with Decker and Alia at the end. I could have gone with the Changeling. Actually, I was thinking of cheating a little bit and they have two. Do both in this one. I said, okay, I'll just go.
Why are they related at all?
Just a little, I think, just a little. But it's the whole V'ger and how it reminds me a little of maybe just more the visuals, but a little like 2001: A Space Odyssey, kind of like maybe the scope and the look and feel of the movie. And then with what Spock said in I think it was after the spacewalk in sickbay when he said, "Is this all I am? Is there nothing more?" Spock was talking about himself. He was also talking about V'ger, but then I think he was also talking about himself because of what his colon arm and what he was going through as well. So,
and then he defines it by saying this simple feeling that you can't comprehend or can't understand.
And that particular scene actually is my second favorite scene from the movie after the Enterprise at dry dock scene. The whole.
That goes without saying that those 7 minutes are
automatically number one. But this one is number 2. The sort of the friendship between Spock and Kirk. Kind of comes through during just during that scene. And lastly, the quote, the human adventure is just beginning. Originally, I always thought it applied to the TOS crew because that's sort of the beginning of the series of movies. But then I realized it could also apply to, V'ger / Decker / Alia. We never really know what happened to
sort
of the entity at the end, but they might be going on, on their own adventures as well, which maybe for another story. So,
well, I don't want to cut you off, Sam, because I think you might say audacious again, but this movie is audacious, just like another huge, big swing for the fences. This crazy idea to make this story a movie, which I think it would take a whole podcast to talk about the reasonings and the reception and the way the way people have perceived it has changed over the years. I loved it when I was 11, 10 years old. I still love it today. I get that it's the motionless picture. I get all that, but man, I love it. I think this is a brilliant, brilliant pick, Peter. Sam, what's your take?
Yeah, the motion picture probably single-handedly fulfills that promise that Kirk utters in the first episode of Star Trek when he says the search for new life and new civilizations. Really, we see that from its creation as that new life is birthed into the universe. Just a grand scale sci-fi premise. To have that as all the knocks against it, it is a beautiful picture, wonderful soundtrack, and just the score or just the ideas itself presented. You get man versus man, you get classic literature, man versus machine, you get them finding that true meaning of life, human nature. All those elements of great Shakespearean literature is brought to bear in the motion picture.
Seriously. And you get a blaster beam to boot. So I love that thing. Okay, my round 3 soup round pick, 5 words and hashtag. Sneaky Scalosians, speedy sonic squeak, hashtag Quickie Kirk. It is from season 3, wink of an eye. And I just love that this is a super sharp, clever, high concept sci-fi idea that they're just so fast you can't see them. I really think they execute this thing really well. It's one thing that they are moving so fast that they're buzzing and they've shifted out of normal time frame so you can't see them, but they just layer in all these other story elements that just make this, I think, an underrated episode. The Scalosians are sterile, so they need help procreating. They're trying to save their race. Any new species that they accelerate to join them become super susceptible to like a quick death with like a little scratch, or any little thing can kill them because their metabolism is all out of whack. And then the end of this it's kind of a weird ending, because as I was rewatching it, they basically just send them back down to the planet to die off, because they're going to put up a quarantine and say, don't go here. And they can't procreate. So they literally just, that's the end of the Scalosians. And then I love the final little twist, which to me is a great sci-fi conceit, where Spock is fixing the engine in super hyper accelerated speed while he's still hyper accelerated. Anyway, just to me, this is just a fun sci-fi high concept idea. I love the execution. I love Deela. And I gotta tell you, this is a Lee Cronin script, which is Gene L. Coon's pseudonym for when he didn't want his name on it. And 4 of my 5 picks are Gene Coon episodes. So I got a couple more coming up. Taste of Armageddon was Gene Coon as well. So Peter, what's your take on Wink of an Eye?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good pick. I hadn't thought of that one either, but I think what you said makes sense with the sort of the accelerated arc, that part of the story. So, having the water cause it, and then having, everyone be accelerated, and then having him, meet the Scalosians that way. So that was a very interesting storyline.
Yeah, fun sci-fi idea. I like it.
Yeah, I think on the visual side, one thing I always remember from that episode is how everybody was when Kirk was in the accelerated time frame, everybody was sort of
just stand still,
and then
they did a good job with that.
Yeah, like no one moved. And I think there might have been a blooper, I believe, on the old TOS blooper reels, from that episode in which somebody like ran into something, and then it might have been Scotty who ended up moving because he was laughing or something like that.
Plus, they also do the great slow motion phaser beam that Deela just steps out of the way when Kirk tries to shoot her. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Sam, what's your take?
Wink and Eye is one of those underrated season 3 episodes. It kind of, when I was younger, always that and Mark of Gideon, I kind of lumped together. Wink and Eye is just so much more superior in its execution. It gives a great alien takeover story and to the ship, which we see a few times. It's just I love Wink and Eye. I love that sound effect as they buzz around. The fact that they can get it through the coffee. It's so many great little tricks in that episode. But it's sort of the precursor to some of the things that we see Blink of an Eye from Voyager, where two different time streams are moving. Completely different kind of story, but the same concept that you have to figure out what's the problem with time, and there are two different flows of time that you have to work around.
Yeah, for sure. Blink of an Eye is one of the all-time great episodes. But I think you said it. This is an underrated episode. It's just fun. It's just fun to watch. There's a lot of,
and of course, it's got that one scene where they let the folks let it slip through, where Kirk's pulling up his boots.
Oh yeah.
So we know
That's a commercial.
Did I mention Deela before? Oh yeah. Okay, let's go to round 2. Sam, what's your number 2 pick?
Again, trying to go a little deeper here, and when I say deeper, I mean deeper. 5 words. They threw me a few curves. Hashtag not that son, the other son.
Oh,
and it's from season 2, Bread and Circuses.
Oh man.
And when I say deeper, I mean from a religious aspect, a theological aspect.
Yeah.
We see Star Trek, and really this is end of season 2. So now 800 plus episodes later, we get a through line of what religion is like in Star Trek. But I think this concept, number one, multiple big high concepts here. The Hodgkin's law of parallel planetary development. I had to write that down, or I knew I'd mess it up. We get to see another one of those better executed versions of what we could have had, like Mary, for example, where the crew is attracted to the fact that it's a planet out of nowhere that has the Roman lifestyle, but set into the 20th century. That alone is a high enough concept. But then when you throw on the fact that at the end of the episode, when Spock and Kirk and Uhura are discussing their development and the fact that they're not sun worshipers, sun in the sky, but they actually have a person on their planet that's paralleling Jesus. That's a huge concept. And almost we don't think about it, the two going together in Star Trek, but to have that as a conversation point, that even Kirk can say that this will track a development that we've seen before on Earth. Just that overtly religious connection is kind of a big concept for Star Trek. It's something we don't see very often.
For sure. That was kind of a big moment at the end of that episode. And for sure, this is not, I think this is maybe the second time they mentioned Hodgkin's law of parallel planetary development, but it's definitely not only the second time we've seen a planet. There's a lot of planets out there in TOS that feel like they're developing just like Earth. My favorite thing about this episode in terms of the high concept is like when they have the TV, how they're televising these fights and they're manipulating the crowds.
I'm going to do a special on you.
And the magazines with the hot rods and the special cars and things.
At Jupiter 8.
Yeah, the Jupiter 8, right, exactly. I just love that depiction of the future, quote unquote. And, it's pretty accurate. They did a pretty good job of what things are going to look like and consumerism. And anyway, this is another underrated episode. I just think works on a lot of levels. Peter, how about you?
Yeah, no, that's a great pick too. I was watching Bread and Circuses just a few weeks ago for something else, and it was fun to go back to that type of episode with the the parallel Earths again, as well, and seeing all those products. And I actually kind of like the proconsul, to the bad guy that was, he was really good as a bad guy. And then Merrick, who wasn't that strong in the beginning, but at the end he kind of saved Kirk and Spock and McCoy at the end. So it was nice to have those types of memorable characters. And when it comes to what Sam said at the beginning with Uhura, this probably after Mirror Mirror, this may be my favorite Uhura episode, mainly because of that last scene in which she did sort of explain to she didn't have a whole lot of lines this episode, but she had the important one. So it was a good Uhura moment.
And it's also got Mr. ATOS in it. So
yes.
early look. Yeah, the proconsul Claudius Marcus or Maximus? Marcus, yeah, it's Marcus. Yeah, he's a great villain. He's really, really good villain. And Merrick, I'm not fully in on his redemption for kind of how he behaved until the last minute, but at least he got a little redemption.
Yeah.
When I was watching this episode just the other day, it made me think that if TNG is the home of admirals, TOS is the home of bad captains.
Well, yes, thank you.
We see those again and again, and he's just another example of a captain who lets his crew get murdered and just becomes the first citizen.
Which is
just a weird conceit.
I like that because it's my single favorite thing I love about Star Trek Beyond so much that Balthazar Edison is a bad captain from the TOS era. And then when I was watching that and saw that reveal, I was so happy because there's so much of that in TOS. So I love it. Okay, Peter, what's your round 2 pick? I'm loving these picks.
Okay, round 2. Okay, 5 words and a hashtag. I am my own beginning. Hashtag currents, eddies, backwash. My round 2 pick is The City on the Edge of Forever.
Oh, fantastic. How did I not think of this?
Yeah, this is on the, the alternative factors on sort of one end of the spectrum. Right. I think City on the Edge of Forever is probably sir. On the other end of the spectrum.
Well done. That's very fair.
So this episode, it's the concept of the time travel, the alternate timelines, the Guardian of Forever. It's, going back in time and having one person actually at 2 different times, Edith Keeler and Dr. McCoy, but you have sort of one person through an action or inaction, sort of changing everything that happens after, changing the future. So the, Edith Keeler, Dr. McCoy, saved her, and then she was able to be successful in convincing the president to enter the war later, and that, changed everything afterwards. So, those types of concepts of having, one person making a difference, and also the time travel going back and having the Guardian of Forever being, the conduit for that. Those were some of the main reasons why I selected this episode for my number 2.
Well, it's a hugely high concept story. I mean, just the whole idea that one innocent special person needs to die to stop Hitler. It's kind of a crazy thing, or however you want to define that, to let Hitler continue. So whatever that dichotomy is, it's a brilliantly executed City on the Edge of Forever. It's as good as it gets in Star Trek. Huge high concept. I love it.
This episode is actually my favorite Star Trek episode in the entire franchise.
Awesome.
So I really enjoyed. Never get tired of watching this one.
Yeah, I'll speak to the emotion of it. The moment where Spock figures out that Edith Keeler is the crux. And his line, she must die. You see the heartbreaking Kirk, and then the real heartbreak when he has to prevent McCoy from saving her. You can say what you want about Shatner, but he acts his rear end off in that episode with his love interest with Edith, and then that end. And then when they get back through the Guardian, and one of the few times in Star Trek, let's get the hell out of here. A little curse word slips out in 1967. To me, it's just the gravity of that episode. And yes, the concepts, I know it has a tortured history with Harlan Ellison writing it and the rewrites and where it ended up. But you can't ask for pure science fiction greater than The City on the Edge of Forever. That has a heart to it too.
Welcome to TV production, Harlan. Stop crying. Okay, sorry, I'm kind of over that narrative of Harlan Ellison's other story somehow being better. It's pretty good, Harlan. Turned out okay, buddy. Okay. And I will say, yeah, the swear word, and you talked about and by the way, I will also get on the soapbox. William Shatner's a brilliant actor, people. The narrative that he's not a good actor is the craziest thing out there. That he is absolutely incredible. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And for me, the scene that always gets me, obviously, in addition to the death of Edith Keeler, is when he saves her on falling down the stairs. Because as a kid, when I'm watching it, it's just like, oh, he shouldn't have done that. Oh no, that's
what Spock chides him for.
I know, and just that realization when you're watching it. For me as a kid, like, oh man, that's rough. Like if he had let her fall down the stairs, that would have been better. Oh no, this is terrible. Anyway, all-time classic episode, picked many times here on TrekRanks, and I love it. Okay, I am going to do my round 2 pick, and I'm breaking my pretty well-established rule for this 15-part series. I usually don't go back and pick anything I picked previously in my underrated or guilty pleasures for that specific series, but I'm doing it for this round because I just could not pick this. I love this high concept. It's so out there. I think they tell it so well in the 1960s. 5 words and a hashtag. Spooky simulations, shadows, surreal sets, hashtag. More than okay corral. It is Spectre of the Gun from season 3 of TOS. And I mean, I could have picked it as high concept just because they spell Spectre R-E, which has ingrained itself into me since I was a kid, which I love. But the style and this storytelling on this is so great. And it's that classic, being born, necessity is the mother of invention, right? It's like they don't have a budget for sets. Okay, we'll just put up these half-built kind of surreal Western sets that are sitting in a warehouse somewhere, and get all the old cowboy uniforms out, and we'll just kind of light this thing weird. And it's just brilliant. It's just really avant-garde masterpiece. I love it so much. I love the storyline. And the ending, which is just basically, again, the sci-fi high concept Vulcans, you just have to believe these bullets aren't going to kill you. And if there's one little iota of doubt, you're dead. And Spock's mind meld helps everybody have that belief. And it's just shot so beautifully well with the Holiday gang shooting at the Enterprise crew and all the bullets ricocheting off the wooden fence behind them. I love it. By the way, it's another Lee Cronin script, Gene Kuhn, without his name on it. So I love it. Sam, what's your take on Spectre of the Gun? I like that we keep mirroring our picks because you have Bread and Circuses, the Roman episode, and I have Spectre of the Gun, the Western episode.
The older I get, the more and more I actually become a season 3 apologist.
Right.
Huge fan of season 3.
Right.
And this was early in season 3. And you're right. As a kid, I've loved it, and I've loved it ever since. It just, the sets were always creepy. The Empath is another episode where those stripped down sets give it something extra to it. But in this episode, you're right, that the mind meld, did Chekhov die? All those pieces. It's just really, I know it was on the Twilight Zone episode too, the Spectre of the Gun. I wanted so bad to pick this one, but it's already been picked so many times, but it's such a darn good episode.
Yeah.
It is just great science fiction concepts put to play, aliens that are way more powerful than they need to be playing with humans. And this is the result. Godlike creatures will always mess around with us. And this is one of those pieces that it just tells the story extremely well.
It's Spectre of Gun is one of my favorite episodes from season 3, and even when I was a teenager getting into Star Trek, I think those orange walls was just very memorable with those facade of the Western town buildings. So that was always enjoyed the sort of the look and feel of that episode. And like you said, that scene at the end with the mind meld with Spock, going to helping the rest of the crew, you're getting ready for the fight. So kind of had a impact. It was always memorable. And then more recently, Lower Decks did a reference to to Spectre a gun during the IX Radius. I think that was Mariners with the horse. And also one little, and this circles back to the Trek minutia, was that Spectre a gun, the one of the facades used the Trek title font. That was I think the only time that it was referenced, in universe, was you see the font used for the Star Trek title, the main titles, is also in that particular episode. Wait,
was it on like the newspaper or wanted poster?
No, not the newspaper. It's like Sheriff. It was the Sheriff.
Oh, the Sheriff. Oh yeah, the wall. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember.
It was the Sheriff.
Yeah,
right. So that was
so good.
They made a reference. But it's a great episode.
Incredible. I'm today years old.
Oh. It's really, really classic. Okay, let's go to round one. Sam, what do you got?
Begin round one.
Again, I wanted to go deep, and when I made the list, this one was one of the first ones that popped up, and it's one for me that it doesn't come to mind when I think about episodes, but when I do my rewatch, it's always one that I love. And 5 words. Please apologize to me again. # great callbacks in this one. And it is season 2's By Any Other Name.
Oh, love it.
And in this episode, we get it all. We get to see the Andromeda Galaxy a bit far away. Right. We get to go back through the Great Barrier. We get callbacks to not only Where No Man Has Gone Before, where he says we've been there before. And we also get Taste of Armageddon callback, because Kirk reminds Spock, you remember that trick you pulled through the wall where you mind melded?
Oh, right.
So two great callbacks. We don't see that often in episodic Star Trek, but 2 great shout outs there. This was a DC Fontana script.
Yeah.
We get to go to Warp 11. I love that, where Kirk says, pour it on. Let's go. The whole thing is kind of stripped down to the 4 main characters at the end. We got Kirk, Spock, McCoy, Scotty, and we get wonderful scenes with all of them. Obviously, drunk Scotty's my favorite. They all work those aliens in different ways to get them to go through. But for me, the concept is aliens that are so powerful and so bent on conquest. And this is a great sci-fi thing. They forget what they're even doing. That it's generations to get there. They get there and they're trapped in these human bodies. They have no idea what they even do or how they should feel. And then they get it. They win. They easily overtake the Enterprise. And then all of a sudden they got to figure out, well, hell, we got to go all the way back. And are we going to be able to do this in these bodies? They talk about 100 tentacles. So imagine what they would look like if they would have had the budget to slip out of their body again. So for me, this episode, it gives everything to us. Callbacks, Andromeda Galaxy, leaving the galaxy, Kirk using his love prowess again to wreck these aliens. And then in the end, we see Kirk give the olive branch. Let's go back. We can find you a planet. You can settle here. You can be one of us. Had you just asked at the beginning, we would have given you the help that you need. And for me, it's just there's so many high concepts, so many different sci-fi concepts in this one that it holds up, and it's one of my secret favorites.
I love it. And you're not going to believe it. This is the first time it's ever been picked on TrekRanks. I
can't believe that. Really?
I really am surprised. I thought it had been picked before, because there's so much fun stuff in this. And you kind of you mentioned it with the scene with Spock and the mind meld through the wall and the callback to iMud. But I just love that scene that, hey, let's lock them in a cage. It just feels like a 1960s kind of like Gilligan's Island kind of thing. Like, let's lock them in a cell in a cave and let them escape. It just, I don't know. It just, there's something very, I don't know, something I just like that as a kid, just watching that. Yes, brilliant. This pick, super high concept. Peter, what's your take on By Any Other Name?
Yeah, actually, whenever I think of By Any Other Name, I think of those cubes that they use at the beginning as a way to make a threat, for Rojan to, threaten Kirk on the planet by killing one of the crew. But then once they were on the ship, kind of reducing everybody into those little cubes as a way of saving money, saving space, and also to visually, remember how the crew was and that they're being held captive.
Well, just that moment when Roshan picks up the two and he's going to crush one, and you're not sure who it's going to be, and that hurts. That hurts.
It's the scary scene where Kirk comes down the corridor and he turns right, and there's a hallway full of them.
Yeah.
And in my head, I'm like, Jim, you got to go pick these up. You just can't leave them laying around.
Right.
Someone's going to step on one. You got to get them cleaned up.
Oh,
yeah. And I think even in that scene, I remember there was like a clipboard, there was like little, accessories that people were carrying when it happened. So it was just a little bit unsettling to see that. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And remember when I was talking about Deela? Also Kalinda. So there we go. Kirk. Oh man. Okay. Peter, what is your round one, number one pick?
Okay. I think similar to Sam's experience, when I first heard about this topic, this episode came up pretty much quickly. And so it's still my number one. 5 words and a hashtag. Can half a man live? Hashtag. I'm Captain Kirk. I want to live.
Oh man.
My number one pick, I want to live. Season 1, episode 6, The Enemy Within.
Please! I want to live!
You will. Both of us.
I want to live!
This is a great pick, man. I did not think of this one. It's super high concept. It's the elevator pitch, but it's also a big idea.
Yep.
Brilliant.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's the concept of Kirk split into two. You have a negative or maybe quote unquote bad Kirk, and then you have a positive quote unquote good Kirk. However, along the way, and Spock and McCoy kind of realized at first, you really need both to make the Captain Kirk that we know. So even though it's a negative Kirk, the leadership, making the hard decisions, you need that side of Kirk, as well as the sort of the positive sides of compassion, the tenderness part of it. So you really need two to make a full person. And if you split it, it just won't work. So that was a concept that I always thought of whenever I watch that episode that comes up. And so that was what I came up with. And there's actually a little bit of a personal connection with this. And this goes back to sometimes you have Star Trek fans saying that, I watched Star Trek and I helped, I became, a scientist, or I became an astronaut or something because of what I saw. And so this particular episode actually helped me in sort of where my current career is, because this episode helped expose me to psychology.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm, yeah. The sort of the personality psychology on this episode. So I watched this. I got into Star Trek in high school. I ended up majoring in psychology in college. And after an unrelated career, but now in my second career, I'm actually in human resources, which is sort of the psychology of the workplace. So in a way, in a roundabout way, watching The Enemy Within, 40 years ago, eventually sort of led me, at least exposed me to that field, which then, led me to major in it. And then I, work in that field now. So
that's cool. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, that's what this episode is really, really about in terms of high concept. Sam, what's your take on The Enemy Within? That's an awesome number one.
Great episode. It's so early in the series run too.
Yeah.
And it comes out and just swings and hits a daggum home run right there. So many good pieces here. But when we think about sci-fi concepts or high concepts, that idea of can we take the person and split them and really see how those two interact? And you could not ask for two different Kirks existing in the same space. It's different than the mirror Kirk that we can imagine, that we only see a glimpse of in Mirror Mirror, because this really is our Jim Kirk, but just the worst of him and the best of him. And even the best was dithering and he couldn't make decisions and he was worried and he needed that. And just to have that as a play for us to watch is incredible. So early on in the series too. And we get the crazy dressed dog. I mean, the mood is worth it.
Oh, why did you have to bring that up? Now I'm sad. Poor little dog. Okay, brilliant pick. Can't summarize it any better than that. I love it. All right, let's close it out with my number one pick. Our good friend Bill Mann, who's at TrekFan4387, is going to love this pick. It's one of his favorite episodes, and it's the first time it's been picked on TrekRanks, which is nuts. 5 words and a hashtag. Cloud creature commences cautionary companionship. Hashtag changes. And it is Metamorphosis from TOS season 2.
Wow.
And yes, I mean, as far as something that you really wouldn't expect to see on TV in the 1960s, this is it. It's just a huge high concept sci-fi idea. It's just all over the place. First, you have 150-year-old Zephram Cochrane, the human creator of warp drive. He's living all alone on this barren planet, and this odd cloud creature companion that he can summon telepathically and communicate with, and he can bring him, and it comes and goes, and he eventually learns is in love with them, which when you really kind of break that down, and his reaction to finding out that it's in love with them is an amazing thing and relationship to see portrayed on TV in the 1960s, and definitely represents something different through our modern day lens in the 21st century. And all of that is just this amazing setup for the eventual merging with Commissioner Nancy Hedford that saves her because she's dying and allows the two of them to kind of live out their days and communicate and couple. And the whole thing's just a trip. It's a real trip. It's a high concept. And if the story wasn't high concept enough, the way they shoot this thing, it's basically one set. I mean, there's the stuff inside his little tiny home, but everything else is just this one planet set. They have these different forced perspective tricks and the colors and the mood and the lighting. It's really kind of amazing. So this one, again, another Gene Kuhn script. It was directed by Ralph Sinensky, who is 99 years old and still alive. He directed 7 episodes of TOS. He's a legend. Well, he directed Bread and Circuses and a bunch of other classics, Tolian Web, This Side of Paradise, Return to Tomorrow. So he directed Obsession, which has this real similar feel to Metamorphosis. Anyway, Metamorphosis, that's my pick. High concept. Sam, what's your take?
Would have never thought of it in 100 years. Great episode, though. And I think back to, you were talking about the way it was shot, some of those great visuals, too, where Nancy has her scarf and it looks like the cloud, and she holds it in front of her eyes, and just those kinds of things to it. But you're right, from a conceptual, I never thought about it in the box that you just put it in. But what a mind-blowing concept. And now that we know, that we go fast forward and we know Zephram Cochrane a little bit as a person and as a character that we've seen, it's interesting to think about how he ends up there and how we find him in the future. No, great pick. That's a wild pick, and I'm shocked that it has never been picked before.
Yeah, I can't believe that either. And I'll just say this before I go to you, Peter, that the Zephram Cochrane thing, your first thought in your mind when you see James Cromwell's Zephram Cochrane is that it doesn't match up with Glenn Corbett's Zephram Cochrane from Metamorphosis. But man, the more you dissect it, the more it really does kind of fit, especially with him having, become young again and living out his life there as a young man. It really does kind of fit. And Peter, what's your take?
Oh, actually, it's a great pick. It's actually I have a very soft spot for Metamorphosis. And the reason why is because when I first started to get into Star Trek, the local TV station showed this episode a lot. I mean, that's a lot. Right. I don't know.
Everybody's got one of those episodes that they feel like the station showed more than right. Yeah.
And this was it. And it's actually made up for one of the Empath, which we talked a little bit about before, which the station hardly showed at all, which I could understand that. But with Metamorphosis, because I saw it so many times when I first got into it, it was, has a special place. And like you said, with the Nancy Hedford, the cinematography, I remember the music as well was very well done. I mean, TOS music in general I really like TOS music, but this was one of my favorite, music scores for TOS. So it was just, I always have a soft spot for Metamorphosis. And another reason why is because more recently, My favorite sort of standalone Trek novel is called Federation by Judith and Garfield Reeves Stevens. Yep. And it's essentially a kind of a follow-up to the events of Metamorphosis. So we meet Zephyr Cochrane, Nancy Hedford again, and it's kind of like a crossover between TOS and TNG, but it's my favorite standalone novel for Star Trek, and that's to see what happened, even though it's not non-canon, but to follow up on that episode is nice to see what happens.
One of the Star Trek books I've read. It's great. Love it. Okay, let's get into some secondary systems quick. Sam, what just missed your list?
Let's see what you can do with the secondary systems.
Tomorrow's Yesterday came on and off my list so many times. Just a great concept of a huge concept of time travel of this person has offspring that's important. The opening shot of we seeing it from the Air Force's perspective and the Enterprise is the alien ship. It's great. It's so close to picking Tomorrow's Yesterday.
Great pick.
Had a couple others. Motion Picture was on my list. I was going to make a plug for my single favorite episode. For the World is Hollow and I've Touched the Sky.
Yes,
the concept of that ship is a planet that's all they ever know. That concept, we see that in sci-fi every now and then. And then I had a couple favorites. Piece of the Action I was going to throw in there. Conscious of the King. But really, I kind of solidified my list and was pretty happy with it, mostly from the get-go. But Tomorrow's Yesterday. Boy, that one almost got in there. If there was a sixth one, it's 100% there.
Toughest Scott. Peter, how about you?
A few others that I was thinking of. The Devil in the Dark was one of the ones. The Horda and how the Horda was seen at the beginning and how she was seen at the end. Metamorphosis we just talked about. Oh, the Empath. That was we talked a little bit about it before. It was like between the sets, the visuals, but also the Vians and Gem and what her why she had to go through the tests. That was an interesting high concept episode
for sure.
And then let's see, we have Savage Curtain was another one. Aside from Space Lincoln, but they sort of have the good.
What do you mean besides Space Lincoln rules? Good versus evil.
It's another one of those season 3s that's just it gets better and better.
I don't care what anybody says. It's someday we'll do top 5 world building episodes, and guess what I'm going to pick? The Savage Curtain. You got Kalis, you got Colonel Green, you've got Sirach. I mean, amazing. Yeah. Okay, my toughest cut was Return to Tomorrow, which I would have picked, but I literally just picked it last week for Trek Gambles. So I couldn't pick it again. Major high concept. I also had For the World is Hollow and I've Touched the Sky. I've picked that a couple of times, so I pushed it aside. And then Charlie X is one that I just think is a really good high concept. Just that Twilight Zone conceit of how do you stop this kid with this unfettered power to just whisk you into the cornfield. I think that's a pretty big idea. And then my special shout out, I'm glad the motion picture got picked. I've got The Voyage Home, which is a pretty singularly high concept of going back home and save a couple of whales. I love it. Okay, amazing stuff. Wrapping up our 15-part Legacy Trek series. I love it. Thanks, guys. And now let's get into our regeneration cycle. We'll go through some stats and a quick recap of our picks.
Computer, activate regeneration cycle. Alcoves Beta and Gamma.
Okay, Sam, just rattle off your top 5, and we'll go from there.
Sure. At number 5, I had The Cage, the original, the OG. At number 4, The Ultimate Computer from Season 2. At number 3, I had Season 3's Requiem for Methuselah. At number 2, from Season 2, I had Bread and Circuses. And number 1, I had Season 2's By Any Other Name.
I love it. So you had the pilots as well as 3 Season 2 episodes, 1 Season 3. You had 2 first-time ever TrekRanks picks, and you had 2 DC Montana episodes. It's pretty great. Peter, rattle off your 5.
Okay, my number 5 is The Alternative Factor. My number 4 is The Cage. My number 3 pick is Star Trek The Motion Picture. My number 2 pick is City on the Edge of Forever. And my number 1 pick is The Enemy Within.
This is a pretty good breakdown. You had the pilot as The Cage, as well as the first movie, the motion picture, and then you had 3 season 1 episodes to round out your picks. I love it. And my picks my number 5 pick, season 2, Mirror Mirror. Number 4 pick from season 1, A Taste of Armageddon. My round 3 pick was Wink of an Eye from season 3. Also from season 3, my round 2 pick, Spectre of the Gun. And from season 2, my number 1 pick, Metamorphosis. So I had 2 from season 2 and season 3, and 1 from season 1. And a couple of quick stat breakdowns. We had 1 duplicate. We had 4 first-time picks, so that's pretty good. Requiem for Methuselah, Wink of an Eye, By Any Other Name, and Metamorphosis, all for the first time were picked. That's crazy. Okay, quick editor's note. I was just looking at the alternative factor. It has actually never been picked on TrekRanks either, so we actually have 5 full episodes that have not been picked previously on TrekRanks. I wanted to make that clarification. Okay, back to the show. And then there was 2 DC Fontana scripts and 5 Gene Kuhn credited stories. In our season breakdown, we had 1 film chosen, 3 episodes from season 3, 5 from season 2, and 6 from season 1. So we spread it around pretty good. Amazing final episode in our Trek Legacy series. I love it. But as we do every week, we've now been hit by a temporal distortion. So before we can depart, it's time to hear from you.
The temporal distortions are fracturing space-time throughout the ship.
Cause?
Unknown.
Oh, we know the cause, Mr. Tuvok. All the amazing feedback we continue to receive from our listeners here at TrekRanks. And this week's temporal distortion has sent us back to episode 137 and our top 5 coolest looking aliens. I love that show. So much fun. We got an amazing list in from Craig Main, who is at Craig M1701 on Twitter. He's a great Trek follow on Twitter. I love his list, and his number 1 pick is just an absolute chef's kiss. So here we go. 5 words and a hashtag, complete. His number 5, definition of an iconic alien, hashtag lizard in a tunic. It is, of course, the Gorn, coolest looking alien. His number 4, we just talked about it, battle between good and evil, hashtag rock monster. It's the ex-Calbian from the Savage Curtain. They live for the hunt, hashtag the killing gamers. It's the Hirogen, of course. Cybernetic scourge of the galaxy, hashtag are they nice now? I love that because that's a Picard season 2 reference. It's the Borg. And his number 1, don't care it's for kids, hashtag where's my plushie? And of course it's Murph from Prodigy. So good. Such a great list. I love it. All right, once again, those picks more than enough to clear ourselves from this week's temporal distortion. So as always, I want to thank everyone for all your great responses to the TrekRanks podcast. Keep your list coming to me at TrekRanks on Twitter so we can retweet them. But we also want to hear from you. So put together your own list of top 5 high-concept TOS episodes or a list from any of our past shows. Give us a call at the Tricorder Transmissions at 609-512-5527, or you could just record yourself, send me a link, DM me, and we can download it that way if it's easier. Would love to hear your voicemails and get you on the show that way. So hopefully we'll hear from you so you can be featured on the next episode of TrekRanks. And on the next episode of TrekRanks, we are doing... It's another one. It's another season recap show. This one is a recap of the hilarious 3rd season of Star Trek Lower Decks. It's the top 5 Lower Decks season 3 moments. Cannot wait to talk about this one. Lower Decks, so good. So Sam and Peter, we are 6 episodes through the season right now as we record this. So you've got more than half the season to choose from. Right now, what would be your moment or episode or whatever from Lower Deck season 3 that you would highlight, Sam?
There's too many to choose from.
Right.
I'm gonna go still with when they visited Bozeman, and it was an attraction like none other. That was the season premiere where they had first contact day salmon you can get.
Yes,
that
thirst contact.
That's just wonderful stuff. I love seeing Bozeman as a tourist attraction.
Yes, I love it. And I'll just say this as a slight preview. I mean, do not get me wrong. The Hear All, Trust Nothing is the most amazing revisit to Deep Space Nine, but I like Grounded a little better. I like the Bozeman first contact stuff and Zephram Cochrane and playing Steppenwolf and the whole bit. Something about that really spoke to me in a different way. I love it. Peter, what is your Lower Decks highlight?
Okay. Well, for me, so far, my favorite moment in season 3 was from episode 6. So as I'm a big fan of DS9, so when they were showing the DS9 episode with first seeing the space station and walking around the promenade and Rutherford going up to the second level
dangle his legs off the corner,
the legs, the Jake and Nog, just so many different callbacks and references to the show. And so I kind of see I see episode 5 almost like a DS9 season 8, episode in which we go back and just to see how some of the members of the cast of the crew that we saw, like Kira and Worf, are doing. So that for me is my favorite moment so far.
It's beautiful. They did
just keep circling the pylons.
Just keep circling. Brilliant stuff. Yeah. All right, looking forward to that one. Okay, a huge thanks to Sam Nelson and Peter Hong. It was awesome having you guys on for this final episode in our Trek Legacy 15-part series.
I was wondering if you could show me how to access these subspace communications logs.
And we're going to do that right now, Mr. Neelix. So any Trek subspace communications either one of you want to relay before we depart? Sam?
No, Jim, thanks for having me on. And I'm sure I speak for Peter when I say it's an honor to be here to close out this huge 15-part series. So hats off to you, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. I appreciate it. Peter, thanks for coming back on, man.
Sure. No, great. Thank you. As Sam said, it's an honor to be here. I really enjoyed talking with you and with Sam about TOS and just, chatting about Trek. So definitely a great time. Thank you very much.
I love it. Look these guys up on Twitter and the Trek Book Club that Peter helps run with our buddy Rob Chapman. And okay, that's it. I want to thank everyone for engaging with us here on episode 145 of the TrekRanks podcast. As always, I want to close by saying I'm looking forward to standing with you again here in this place where I belong.
Why? What is so funny about man reaching for the moon?
How do you know?
I just know, that's all. I feel it. And more, I think that one day they're going to take all the money that they spend now on war and death
And make them spend it on land.
Yes.
Just want to remind everyone again that the entire TrekRanks catalog is available for you to download and listen to at TrekRanks.com and on your podcast player of choice. Our episodes never get carbon dated, so check out the topics you've missed and maybe just want to listen to again over at TrekRanks.com. And a reminder to check out our friends 5-Year Mission at 5yearmission.net. They're writing a song for every episode of Star Trek, and you won't believe how great their music is. They also have a podcast at the Trek Geeks Network, so seek them out. You won't regret it.
They can't do that. They'll destroy the M5.
You can save the M5 if you talk to it and make it stop the attack.
I can make it stop. I created it. M5 tie-in.
M5.
This is Daystrom.
Daystrom acknowledged.
M5. Do you know me?
Daystrom, Richard. Originator of Contronic Duotronic Systems. Born.
Stop. M5, your attack on the starships is wrong. You must break it off.
I don't like the sound of him, Jim.
You better pray that the M5 listens to the sound of it.